Okay, so I have the pieces that I laser cut this morning. I try to keep them in their proper places just to help me line them up for later on, so that I don't end up flipping them over. So what I'm going to start with is actually gluing together the base, because it's a lot easier to glue the base and get it square and get it nice before you put the topo lines on. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way, it just tends to work a little bit better. And again, kind of one of the key pieces of this is if I keep all the same sides up, when I go to flip them together, they're going to match. So that's part of why I'm keeping them face up and keeping them arranged correctly. So once I have all the pieces in there I need to know which side I cut the extra strips off of, in which case it was the long side. So when I glue them together, right, the two sides are going to come together like that. Okay. Generally, they should stand up pretty nicely by themselves already once you start to put them together. So the gluing should go pretty fast. I stole this from over there. So apparently everybody's stealing this glue. I do really like the tacky glue. It's my favorite in terms of gluing this together. I don't recommend super glue unless you get the super glue gel kind, because the regular kind is too liquidy and it'll run. It's a little bit faster, obviously. This, if you count in your head to about 30, will be tacky enough to let go. Sometimes you have to go to about 60. It depends on what piece you're trying to connect. And then as long as you're careful, you're generally okay leaving it there. When you cut the nozzle off, they cut this one way too fat. Slice it very thin until you get to just a little bit coming out, because otherwise it'll be just too much glue. I also prefer the smaller bottles. They don't last as long, but at the same time they don't get quite as gooey. So anyway, a little glue will go a long way in terms of putting it together. Sometimes you have to kind of shake the glue down to get a little bit more in the end. And so anyway, you guys have to bear with me. This is not a ridiculously slow process, but at the same time it's not a super fast process. When you're doing this kind of thing, you want to be gluing on top of something that's not precious if you're a sloppy gluer, because the glue will spill out and end up going over things and that sort of thing. One of the great things to glue on is if you lay out a bunch of packing tape. It'll release off the packing tape really easily. The other trick strategy when you're building a model is if you're trying to trace over something. Obviously this is not something where we're tracing over anything, but if you were trying to trace over, say, a truss, and you wanted the truss, you were building all the little pieces of the truss, print out a full-scale version from AutoCAD or Rhino or whatever, put it on the desk, packing tape over it, and then you can glue right on top of it and it'll come off without a bunch of little paper pieces being left over. So I'm just going to continue working through this. This is a horribly giant glue bottle. To get this base put together. Good news is these tables are fairly stable.
Holding up.
Let me glue this way. So much for my 30-second rule, right? We'll get a few pieces on here and then it'll glue. These mats on the table are particularly useful. You can use them to help you get square. Right? So if we line it up on these little lines, we can get a good approximation of what's square, which will help in the overall modeling process. Right? But if I did it correctly, it should line up pretty well. It should stay put pretty well. We'll get it close. It looks like my cardboard has a little bit of a bow to it, which long term may be a little bit challenging, but we'll work through it as we get there. Okay, so once I have that kind of base set up, it is square, roughly square, because I used the lines on the table to help organize that. I have two versions of the piece that I cut, and I have them side by side. I used a little bit of masking tape to hold the pieces together. What I want to do is I want to identify where the low point is. And so in mine, it happens to be right in front of me here. And it also is conveniently close to me on these two pieces as well. And so I'll go ahead and pull it off. If you lost track of where your topo lines belong, you can go back to your computer and look it up so that you see what your topo looks like. If you don't have a good idea of what it looks like in your head, or you forgot, or what have you. So once I get these on a nice flat table, I'll go ahead and peel my placeholder tape here off. I want to keep them in their correct order as I go about this, because if they're not in their correct order, I'm going to end up getting lost or use the wrong piece at the wrong time. All right, so that piece is off. We'll do the same for this. The little pieces are the hard ones. I have one little itty bitty tiny piece that I had to put in there. We may end up getting rid of him. Get this last piece off. All right. And so when we did this, we cut every other set of topo. So what I want to do is I want to start with the smallest piece here, and that's going to conveniently go right in. And since you guys can't see, we'll video this as well, right? It's going to go right into the short point. That's right there. And the first one, it's a little bit hard to see, but as we get a little bit going, it'll start to make some sense. So I'll take the first one. And we'll put a little bit of glue on that, and we'll stick it right in its place there. It's probably not going to stay particularly nicely. I also know that it's going to be completely covered by the second one, so I can just smear a little bit more glue, maybe, on it. And I'll take the alternating piece. So I go to the next pile, and I take this piece. And this one is now going to go on top of that one. Right? And so as we start to get these together, they'll start to stay put. So I got those two together. We'll take again the alternating piece right here. And again, this time we're starting to see the topo exposed. I'm going to glue the edges here and here, but I can also glue a little bit right in there. And that will then glue over. And the important thing to recognize here is that you're using the guides. I'm just going to peel this off for a second. You're using the guides, the engraved lines, as guides, but they don't always match up quite perfectly. So if they don't and they're off a little bit because we did the base first, we can use that to our advantage as well. So let me get these guys put together there, right? And these are, again, going to sit right on top of this model here. I really need to get to where I'm spanning one of the corners, so bear with me for just a second. Again, I'm just going to alternate, pick the next piece, right, and I'll glue along the edge. This bottle's killing me. There, and I'll glue across here. Oh. This is where it's fun when you're on video, right? So this is what happens when you use somebody else's glue. Not to worry. These are all laser cut so we can repeat them, right? So let's smear a little bit of that off. This piece is going to be really glued. Thank you. Now the question is, can I recover this enough to be able to use it? You guys just set this out to trap me, didn't you? And man, it's been a long time since I had my hands completely covered in glue like this.
You have kids. No.
Yeah, I don't let my daughter play with the glue like this. It's only a matter of time, I'm sure. But I remember these kinds of things from studio. Just like you remember the times where you actually cut yourself with a knife. You can always count those.
Yeah.
All right. So we shall try this again. I make no claims as to whether this is going to do the same thing on me, but we'll try. At least it didn't happen when I was shaking it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll glue this one on top of this piece. Now we're finally getting to where there's a corner, which will help me work. Now, one of the things that happens is there comes a point where you have a piece like this, and I'll show you, this is one of those things, it's very hard to show you in the corner, where, I'll take this off so you can see it. Okay, see how this topo line cuts back going this way? Mm-hmm. It's going to interfere with the edge of the piece of topo because, by its nature, borrowing so that I can show you, right? If I tried to glue this piece where it belongs right there, see how it doesn't fit on that step correctly because this edge hits that piece of topo? This is where you're going to take, right, your little X-Acto knife, and as much as you like to laser cut and get through everything without doing this, sometimes you have to do a little bit of laser cutting. And if it's a nice sharp blade, we'll be able to go in and just slice that little piece off, which will allow this to fit correctly right in there. Now I have a little bit of a problem here as well on the first level, so let me go ahead and fix that one. I do recommend very sharp blades and changing your blades. You're far more likely to cut yourself with a dull blade than you are with a sharp blade. So go through and change those quickly. Now you can see that that fits really clean on top of that edge of the topo. Right, so now I need to go ahead and add a little bit of glue, I hope. To that edge. I also obviously destroyed part of this model to try to show it to you, so a little bit more glue back there. All right, so now add a little bit more glue to this piece. And then we'll glue this into the corner right there. And it should start to fit nicely, and it should start to step very nicely. One pieces. There we go. Nicely in there. And I probably need to sit here and hold it for a little bit to get it to actually solidify on that corner. But we can see, looking at this corner, well actually you guys can't see, I can very conveniently, that the corner meets up really nicely because of those little back cuts. But I'm probably going to have to do those back cuts as I go further up this row based on how they fit. Same thing's going to happen over here where I'm going to have to do the same kinds of back cuts because of the way the terrain's going. There will come a point in time where the terrain angles away. When it angles away, you don't have to do the back cut. Okay? So you guys don't have to sit and watch me do every single one of the contours, but I wanted to at least get through a lot of the basics of the back cut, how you glue it, and whatever. If you look at what Rebecca's done already, that's me in another 30 minutes, right? If I were to keep going, or 40 minutes. So that's basically the direction you're going. The key is just to make sure that you're alternating pieces, right? Which is always nice when you have stuff kind of laid out, so you just grab the next piece, and glue together. Do you guys have any questions on this? Yeah.
When you back cut it, did you cut it at like a certain angle, or do you?
No, you can get away with cutting it pretty far because the step, the face of the step is the only thing that you're going to see. So, could you do it at 45? Sure, right? In reality, I tend to go a little bit further past it like that. So it's at about 60 degrees or so. And then assuming your knife is really really sharp, you can slice down without a problem, and then you can slice this way pretty easily as well. Assuming your knife is sharp, and it'll just clean out. Does that make sense? Any other questions? No? I feel like you know where you're going? Okay, good. So, sorry that the network's down. It gives you time to do this. I am happy to help anybody laser cut today that they want. We've got a couple technicians in here that can probably help you as well. So, because you have the day off, it might be a good day to try to do your laser cutting.